This is a great question from the macro exam 2010, question 1. It starts off asking questions about aggregate demand and fiscal policy, and then starts jumping into the loanable funds market and economic growth. These questions always give you some information in the beginning that you need. It told you this economy is currently at long-run equilibrium. It asks you to draw the aggregate demand, aggregate supply, and the long-run aggregate supply at equilibrium. So we've got price level and the real GDP, downward sloping aggregate demand curve, upward sloping short-run aggregate supply curve, and a vertical long-run aggregate supply that's right down the middle because they're in long-run equilibrium. That graph is worth 2 points. Next, the question tells you there's an increase in government spending and to draw it on that graph. So an increase in government spending is a shifter of aggregate demand. Aggregate demand would shift to the right. So now we'd be here with an inflationary gap. B2 asks what happens to the unemployment rate because of that increase in government spending. Well, unemployment rate will fall. Now, it's an explain question, so you have to explain why. And the reason is because GDP increased. When real GDP goes up, that means we're producing more stuff, and that means unemployment is going to go lower. Both parts of B are 1 point each, so there's another 2 points right there. Now, right now, we're in the short run. Question C asks, how is this going to get to long-run equilibrium? Eventually, in the long run, resource prices and wages are going to increase because we have upward pressure on prices. We have inflation. And so the aggregate supply curve is going to decrease. Aggregate supply will shift to the left, putting us at a new point right there, back at long-run equilibrium. So you had to explain, you had to say, because resource prices and wages will go up. Now, part of this question, it wanted you to label that new price level. So over here is PL2. This is another 2 points. 1 point for saying aggregate supply will decrease because resource prices will go up. Another point for showing that new price level PL2. Let's backtrack a second, make sure you understood all that. In the long run, we started off right here, and then the government increased government spending. That shifted aggregate demand to the right, and now we ended up right here with an inflationary gap. Now, we can't stay there. This is only in the short run because you can't have like 2% unemployment for very long until prices of wages and the prices of resources start to go up. When those wages do go up, the aggregate supply curve will shift to the left and it'll put us right back here at full employment. Now this question switches over and asks you for the graph of the loanable funds market. Over here we have the real interest rate. Down here we have the quantity of loans. Downward sloping demand curve, upward sloping supply. This right here is the real interest rate. There's the quantity of loans. The question told you that the government is deficit spending to pay for the government spending in part B. So the question is, when the government deficit spends, what does that do to loanable funds? The answer is the demand will increase, shift to the right, and the real interest rate will increase. The reason this happens is because the government is going to the private sector and saying, I want to borrow money too. That'll increase the demand for loans, cause a higher real interest rate. Now that graph and that shift are another 2 points. Now the last part, part E. If there's an increase in the real interest rate, what is that going to do to investment? Well, investment would decrease. You didn't need to explain, but let's do it anyways. A higher interest rate would decrease businesses' willingness to borrow money. And so they would invest less, decreasing investment spending. Now that's the whole idea of crowding out. When the government deficit spends, increasing the demand for loanable funds, they increase the real interest rate, and that's called the crowding out effect. Now when there's a decrease in investment, what happens to economic growth in the future? Economic growth will decrease. The explanation is because a decrease in investment is going to decrease capital stock. Factories would eventually break down and technology wouldn't be utilized if there's higher interest rates and firms can't take out loans to get that stuff. So economic growth would decrease. So right here is another 2 points. 1 point here and 1 point here. All right, add up all the points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. This whole question is out of 10 points. Add it up, see how you did. Until next time.